I want to know, like, this whole journey. I think it's like so amazing that
Yeah.
you've done a lot of commercials, you've done a lot of short films, you've done a lot of music videos. So tell us how you seize these opportunities, and why you chose these other mediums instead of just like focusing on one. And what was the end game for you, and what is your future end game, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah. I have tapped into all of them for different reasons, and I just love creating more than anything. So I'm very impatient. I don't have the patience, really, honestly, to only do film and to wait, 4 years to be able to shoot something else, or and all of those things. And so I've always kind of dabbled in everything, but commercials kind of happened as an accident, as a happy accident. One of my first jobs when I came back to LA after moving to Seattle for a bit, after I graduated from USC for film, um, was at a production company that repped a bunch of really big directors, narrative directors, commercial directors, and that kind of introduced me into the commercial world in general. And then after being in that for a couple of years, I started directing commercials, and then got signed by Epoch. And now I'm signed kind of all around the world for commercials, which is amazing. And there's just such beauty, in telling short stories. And same with short films. Commercials are the same, but even shorter. They're like 30 seconds, 60
Mhm.
seconds, 90 if you're lucky, and then 15-second spots. And so I love kind of, and I'm interested in the challenge of telling visual stories that way, where it's shorter and it doesn't have to have dialogue. Sometimes it could be completely just visual, but you can still communicate a message or a feeling through that. And I think that you do that, we do that with short films too, and that's really fun and interesting. And commercials have that, and the music videos are just creative, and and you can kind of, for the most part, do anything and really play with color and play with imagination and play with feeling and it being weird, and you don't have to explain it. It's not a film, like it is just like a visual medium where you just kind of let your imagination and daydreams go wild.
Mhm.
And I love that about music videos. And I also just love music and always have, from a young age. So I'm naturally drawn to those. But yeah, so really I love it all. I love all the mediums, and I don't I think that I learn more each time that I do a short film or I do a commercial or I do a music video. And I think that I get I learn new strengths every time depending on the medium. And I think that helps in the film world as well, learning more in commercials where you have bigger budgets and you can play with gear that you can't necessarily play with sometimes in indie film
Mhm.
making and music videos and stuff like that. So yeah, they just all go hand in hand. I love them all.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell us what inspired you to make Radical Honesty, and can you tell us perhaps the exact point? And
Yeah. So Allison, who wrote it, I actually cast in one of my music videos for King Pari. And we just got along really well, and I loved, her vibe, and her acting was really great in it. And even though it was subtle and, small, it was really, really amazing. And we have very similar aesthetics as far as what we like and what we're into. And so she reached out and asked if I would direct this short that she wrote, a little bit ago. And usually, like, I've had friends reach out with short films and things like that, and I usually sometimes say no, only for the reason that, like, you really have to love it, and want to dedicate a lot of time into it and find your friends that are going to hook you up and do it for maybe a reduced rate and things like that, because it's indie filmmaking. So you want it to be right, you want to make sure
yeah,
that you really love the story. And I just loved it. And it's simple, but it's also, I love simple stories sometimes because there's so much that's in the unseen, and and the moments where they're not speaking but you can feel what's happening, or the little humorous moments throughout it I really loved as well. So yeah, then we decided to do it together, and it was really fun.
nice.
Yeah.
So some of the best scenes or conversations always happen in a booth at a restaurant.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Yeah.
we don't have to go through the many films that has actually happened. But can you tell us a little bit about you scouting that actual location, and then the fact that, you knowing that, a conversation such as this has to happen in a restaurant.
Yeah. So when she sent me the script, it was actually just the two of them on a bench together, like having this conversation. And I've always been a fan of diners. Like I love kind of, like I love stories about like small towns and revolving around diners and like and retro things and those kind of stories. And so I immediately saw it in a diner for the aesthetic reason of it being interesting and textural and the things that we could find and the way we can light it, that would be cool. And then also just story wise, finding somewhere where there's things are happening around them, and it's a public place, so they can have this conversation, but they can't really like get up immediately, like someone has to pay for the bill, someone has to like say goodbye, yes, you could like stand up randomly and leave, but like more has to come out of it,
Right.
than at a bench at a park that you could just be like, okay, bye, I'm just leaving, and I have, I don't have to stay here.
Yeah.
So I loved that aspect of it. And as far as finding the diner, I actually, when doing commercials too, like I love locations and I love architecture and I love buildings. So I actually always like scout myself a bit before hiring someone to do it as well. But for this guy, I scouted it myself, and I actually drove around North Hollywood for like 2 weekends in a row, just looking at different diners and
Yeah.
walking in and asking them like, like how much would it be to film here, and seeing what it looked like and if it felt right. And I'm really close to the shoot day. I actually had another place on hold that we were going to use, but I felt it felt a little too music video-y, too much of a set than an actual diner. And then I found this random cafe, diner, restaurant, in the corner of North Hollywood that like no one goes to. It's just completely dead and amazing. And I just thought it was so cool and special. And so I went in and I spoke to the owner, and she obviously was super down to let us shoot there. And I just loved it because it just feels very like old Americana kind of, and mixing the old with the new, like the place is, so it looks like grandma's diner kind of, with the wallpaper and the Western aesthetic, and then having this story that's so about the now and the new things that people are going through, like mixing that, I thought could be really interesting.
Nice. Tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about your directorial influences, and maybe some of them that actually hit this film, Radical Honesty.
Yeah. So PTA Anderson, like by far my favorite, one of my favorite filmmakers. And him inspo always, I'd say, just aesthetically for his, when he specifically tells stories that are like California in the 70s or the 60s. I'm really drawn to that. And that's always kind of an inspiration for me. And then the opening of the film was really inspired by Goodfellas, like the one-er shot
Yeah.
through the kitchen, and love, amazing, and the one-er shot in Boogie Nights as well, and like keeping that
Yeah.
momentum and all these things happening until you get to where you're trying to be.
Yeah.
So that was definitely influenced by those two. And then Mike White is a huge influence, just writing wise, what I'm interested in, which is just awkward humor and White Lotus and those conversations that happen, like during dinner, or a simple scene, but they're so awkward and you can't escape them. So that's a huge
Yeah.
influence as well. But yeah, I'd say definitely PTA #1 influence.
So tell us a little bit about this. Is it a female perspective on relationships in terms of this sort of conversation that's had in this film? Is it
Yeah,
female perspective? Or, yeah.
yeah, what I love about Allison's writing, and I think what I've missed from other writers that I've tried to collaborate with, is that her voice is just human. Like it's not, and I love that, it's genderless almost, because it doesn't feel traditionally feminine, it just feels like she can really tap into to the people and what it would actually be like no matter what your gender is.
Mhm.
And I really love that. And that's what I'm most drawn to, for sure. Yeah.
Can you tell us if there is such a piece of filming equipment that you actually used in this in Radical Honesty that would actually, you would recommend to other up and coming filmmakers?
Yeah. You mean like camera gear
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, always Ari Alexa, the best cameras for sure. Top fave. And then we used Cook S4 minis for the lenses, which I really love. Cook lenses are so beautiful and have like a little vintagey flair sometimes. So highly recommend those. And we didn't use it on this film, but Ari's DNA lenses, the best, obsessed, so beautiful.
Nice.
So those I highly recommend for sure.
Okay, so tell us what it feels like to, be part of South by Southwest, and of course, there is like it's sort of like a hybrid festival in person and
Yeah.
online. So, getting back into the theaters, but yeah, like tell us your emotions and your feelings towards that.
Yeah, I'm just so excited. Like it's one of the bigger festivals, and I just love South by is one of the only festivals I feel like that celebrates everyone's voice. Like it's not just, it doesn't have to be necessarily sad and dramatic and dark films. Like it can have humor to it. It can be youthful or it can not be, or they just kind of celebrate everyone's voice.
Mhm.
And so it really meant a lot to me that we got into that one, because it was definitely like when we made it, I really felt that it would be perfect for that outlet. So I'm so excited. It's going to be really fun. And they've been great so far.